It is the month of spooky stories, scary clowns, but the scariest horror of it all is I still don't have a cat. I want a cat so badly. Oh my god. I saw this black cat yesterday morning, was it? Yes, yesterday in the morning when I went to school. I saw this beautiful black cat, but then it ran away. And I don't know where it is. I hope it's good. Back when I was in college, there was an old dormitory that was empty and locked up. The first floor windows were covered up with thick black curtains, and the doors had chains and padlocks on them. Well, my second year of school, I got my EMT certification and started working for the campus EMT squad. I was easily my coolest job ever, and there were perks other students couldn't get. One of those were keys for everything. So, obviously, we used those keys to go everywhere. Obviously. Most places were pretty boring. My now best friend, who was the other EMT I worked with, decided to make the old dorm our hangout place. We would sneak in with friends and drink there on the weekends or nights when we didn't have class. We usually stayed on the first floor on just one wing of the dorm, the one closest to the back entrance. We didn't stray because the place was dirty and had cobwebs. So one night we were drinking in the one room we set up with tables and chairs that we seized. We were all together. Nobody was missing when somebody very close to our room and very loudly screamed, "Who the is there?" To which one of us drunkenly responded, "Who the do you think it is?" A very confused voice responded back, "You're not coming with me then, John?" They sounded like they were walking away from us towards the center of the building, away from the stairwell. Incidentally, none of us were named John. A few minutes later, we could hear on the floor above us, a very old building floor that's super thick, a rumbling sound that kind of shook the walls. The rumbling stopped right above us with a giant crash. It officially got creepy. We all run up the stairs and make our way to the hallway above the one we were hanging out at. Right at where our room would be on the first floor was a giant filing cabinet on wheels. It was just there, nobody else was there. You could see the wheel tracks on the floor because it was dusty as, but there were no other footprints around besides our own. We all bolted without getting our stuff. No stopping to get our booze, or turning off our radio, or turning off our battery-powered lamp. So we obviously had to go back to get our stuff. We waited a few days. A friend of mine and I went one evening to go get it. First we go to the window and see if we can see if our stuff was in there. My friend looks in, I didn't. He said he thought he saw somebody in the doorway. I thought he was acting because of what happened the other night. We sneak in and make it to the room and get our stuff. Somewhere down and towards the center of the building, we hear a door shut. It's completely dark that way. We hear a door close or open, and we don't wait to find out what that's about. So I'm not a person who believes in supernatural stuff, and the same goes for my friends. We decided we need to figure out what the hell is going on with this building. So about 6 of us devised a pretty easy plan to go about with. We circled the building one night and checked all the doors and windows to make sure they were all locked up. Then we went to our usual entrance, left 2 people in the inside of it to make sure nobody came in or out. Then the rest started going from dorm room to dorm room, checking to make sure nobody else was there. We go, "Hello," and obviously get no response. We make it through our hallway we hang out at, and our tensions eat us up. One of the people at the outside door moves up to where we stopped, and we go to the second floor where the filing cabinet was. Because it's back at its original place with the wheel tracks and no footprints, tension in the group rises. We started the whole hello and no response thing again. We get about halfway through the hall, and one of us gets the idea of saying, "Oh, come on, it's your friend Johnny." A giant thud below us. Muffled screams from the 2 we left as lookouts, probably saying something along the lines of, "What the is that?" A giant thud behind us on the same floor, where nobody could have been because we went through those rooms and we would have noticed somebody else slamming the door right behind us. It turned into a race to get back out the way we came, past the doors that were just slammed. As we get into our hallway, we can hear doors opening and closing in a way that something was coming towards us from the center of the building again. We get a few hundred yards away before we all stop running and make sure we all made it. We found another place to hang out after that. It's torn down now and a real dorm is built over it. Edit. I forgot to mention something else. We never put it together that this was never a dorm, even though the hallways were really wide. And some of the rooms would have windows next to doors, like an office usually does. That was the type of room we hung out in because it was a bigger room. But once in a while, we would notice that the window would get foggy, like when you breathe on a window foggy. But it's always on the hallway side of the window, like if somebody was looking at us through the glass and watching us. We never put that together until after the fleeing and terror incident. Good to bring up memories like that. I didn't feel like sleeping anyways tonight. What time are you guys watching this? I'm reading this at 11 p.m. at night by myself in my room. Ever since I was really little, my family had always encountered really weird ghostly phenomenon. The house we live in now has been the worst by far. However, with an almost constant stream of events happening, one of the stories that always freaks people out the most is that there was this little girl who knew our names and would approach us all at different times. One night, I was asleep and I heard a knocking on my door and a girl's voice saying, that's a little funny that we're gonna go with it though. Anyways, open the door, let me in, I want to play, open the door. At first I thought it was my sister, but as I woke up I realized it was a much younger girl's voice. I sat there silently freaking out until it eventually stopped, but just as I was about to go to haul my ass into my sister's room, it was a relentless pounding on the two separate doors that entered my room and this little girl screaming with laughter saying, I know you're in there, let me in. After a few minutes I just ended up yelling, stop it, and then pounding stopped. The next morning, my mom and sister, who I hadn't told, were talking about strange footsteps and giggling sounds all throughout the house, but neither of them had heard any pounding or me yelling. Creepy. Lots of creepy things have happened to me growing up. My mom's a spiritualist, and for a while a medium. It's something she said you had to train at, so things used to happen quite a lot around her. Not a lot happened to me, but one of the things I remember was a party we were having in my house. It was late and everyone was crashing in me and my little sister's room, and we were having a big pillow fight. Cliche, I know. In the dark. All of a sudden, my friend stops and takes a weird gasp. Now my room was strange. It was very narrow, only enough room to fit a bed and a table, but it was very long. At one end of the room, there was also 3 steps that led onto another small area. My friend was looking down at this area, and as I looked down, I could see the figure of a cloaked man standing at the top of the steps. I freaked out and banged the light on, and sure enough, no one was there. There was about 5 to 6 of us in the room, and every single person saw the man. Whether or not it was a trick of the light is debatable, but we all slept with the light on that night. We were all around 12. Another event I remember was an evening I spent at my friend's house. A different friend. Let's call her Lisa, still about 12. Her parents were out for the night, so we were all up in her room playing music and dancing like Egypts. There was about 5 of us that night too. She had a big golden lap dog, and all of a sudden he got up out of the room and ran downstairs and started barking. Next thing we hear what sounds like Lisa's dad literally screaming, Lisa! We all freaked out because her dad didn't know we were there and was gonna have a complete fit. We whacked the music off and ran downstairs, only to find that her dog was barking at a random corner in the room. We didn't take too much notice of this at the time, but we all ran out the back door and ran a little up the street. I looked around to notice Lisa wasn't with us and started back towards the house a bit. It was at this point I noticed that there was no car at the house, meaning there was no way her dad was back. Lisa then came running out of the house in tears, saying something had stopped her coming out to the garden and was saying her name. I brought her back to my house and she stayed there until her parents came home. It wasn't until 3 to 4 weeks later I wanted to go over to her house and see if she wanted to come out. She lived in a house that was across the field of mine. I tried ringing the door but no answer, so I got my old video camera and used it to zoom in to see if anyone was in. The way her house worked was there was the living room, the kitchen behind it. There was a window directly behind the living room window in the kitchen, so you could see straight into the garden. I was checking this out when I noticed a figure moving in front of the light from the window and blocking it. I thought, grand, she must be in. But with a closer inspection, I noticed that the figure was someone I had never seen before, and they were staring right at me from across the field with my camera. I freaked. I called my sister in to have a look, but when we came back in, it was gone. We were there for another few minutes when a car pulled up, and Lisa and her whole family got out and brought some shopping into the house. I told her about it much later, and she confessed she saw things all the time in the house. Needless to say, I stopped staying as much. Another event was with my brother. He'll never admit it, but he's very receptive to otherworldly kind of things. The story I remember the most was when we lived in a 3-story house. He had the top floor, but he also had a recliner chair in his room, a Joey chair. He always complained that he'd see what looked like the shape of a person in his chair, but always assumed it was the way he'd thrown his clothes on the chair. One night, he decided to investigate. He got up and walked slowly over to the chair. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? It disappeared. I've never heard my brother scream like that in my life. Everyone on all 3 floors heard him that night. He would also see things like nooses hanging from the ceiling, etc. I love the stories like this, but I'll stop here. No one will probably see them anyways, but if you fancy more, let me know. I'm gonna try to sleep now. No one's gonna see this. YouTube is gonna see this. Thank you for watching. That was creepy. I want to turn on my lights, so I'm gonna say goodbye. Peace out.
Hey, I'm sorry for dreaming about the future. You and I'll be better when we're old enough.
Lights on. We're back in bed. I'm still kind of creeped out. I should play some music.